The Punic Wars were a series of 3 wars between 264 and 146 BC, fought between the Roman Republic and the Carthaginian Empire, which saw some of the largest and most sophisticated battles in antiquity. The fighting took place in the Western Mediterranean basin, primarily in Italy, Sicily, Eastern Iberian Peninsula, and Northern Africa. All 3 wars ended with Rome's victory, despite that in the first 2 wars, the Romans were very close to defeat at some points. During the Third Punic War, the city of Carthage was besieged and conquered by the Romans, and the former Carthaginian territories were annexed by Rome. At the start of the war, Carthage was the dominant power of the Western Mediterranean, with an extensive maritime empire, while Rome was a rapidly expanding power in Italy, with a strong army but a weak navy. Relationships between the 2 powers were first good, and the 2 states had several times declared their mutual friendship via formal alliances, in 509 BC, in 348 BC, and around 279 BC. During the Pyrrhic War of 280-275 BC, Carthage helped the Roman forces fighting against Pyrrhus of Epirus in southern Italy. In 264 BC, Rome decided to intervene in a dispute in Sicily between the city of Syracuse and the city of Messina. Messina appealed to both Rome and Carthage, and the Carthaginians, arriving first, occupied Messina and effected a reconciliation with Syracuse. However, the Romans crossed the Strait of Messina and conquered the city, provoking war with Carthage and Syracuse. The Romans then pressed Syracuse, the only significant independent power on the island, into allying with them and laid siege to Carthage's main base at Acragas on the south coast. In 262 BC, the Carthaginians were heavily defeated at the Battle of Acragas, and the Romans seized the city and its inhabitants, selling 25,000 of them into slavery. After this, the land war in Sicily reached a stalemate, as the Carthaginians focused on defending their well-fortified coastal towns and cities that could be easily supplied and reinforced by sea, without the Romans being able to use their superior army to interfere. The focus of the war shifted to the sea, where the Romans had little experience. In 260 BC, Romans set out to construct a fleet and used a shipwrecked Carthaginian quinquereme as a blueprint for their own. The new Roman navy inflicted a major defeat to the Carthaginians in the Battle of Mylae in 260 BC, using a boarding device called the corvus, enabling enemy vessels to be boarded and seized. Then, the Romans tried to occupy the Carthaginian bases in Corsica and Sardinia without success. The Romans used their fleet to launch an invasion of North Africa in 256 BC, which the Carthaginians intercepted at the Battle of Cape Ecnomus off the south coast of Sicily. The Carthaginians were again beaten in probably the largest naval battle in history by the number of combatants involved. In North Africa, the Romans were first successful until the Battle of Tunis in the spring of 255 BC, when a combined force of infantry, cavalry, and war elephants, under the command of Spartan mercenary Xanthippus, crushed them. The war resumed in Sicily, and the Romans conquered the city of Palermo in 254 BC. Then, slowly, the Romans occupied most of Sicily, and in 250 BC, they began the siege of the last 2 Carthaginian strongholds, Lilybaeum and Drepana, in the extreme west. However, the Roman fleet was completely destroyed in 249 BC in the battles of Drepana and Phintias. At this moment, both states were financially and demographically exhausted. Rome lost 17% of its pre-war male population. Carthage requested for a 2,000 talent loan from Egypt, which was refused. The Roman Senate approached Rome's wealthiest citizens for loans to finance the construction of one ship each, and by 243 BC, their fleet was rebuilt. This new fleet effectively blockaded the Carthaginian garrisons and destroyed the Carthaginian fleet in the Battle of the Aegates Islands in 241 BC. Isolated, the Carthaginian troops in Sicily negotiated for peace, and in 241 BC was signed a peace treaty. Carthage had to pay 3,200 talents of silver, and Sicily was annexed as a Roman province. While Rome became the leading military power in the Western Mediterranean, Carthage had to confront with a full-scale mutiny of mercenary foreign soldiers who were not paid. Hamilcar Barca, a veteran of the campaigns in Sicily, was given joint command of the Carthaginian army in 240 BC and supreme command in 239 BC. The rebel soldiers in North Africa were defeated in early 237 BC, and the Carthaginian army began preparing an invasion against the rebels in Corsica and Sardinia. At that moment, Rome demanded Carthage to cede Corsica and Sardinia and pay an additional 1,200 talent indemnity, or it will declare war. Weakened by 30 years of war, Carthage agreed with these demands rather than entering again into conflict with Rome. Hamilcar understood that Carthage needed to strengthen its economic and military base if it were to again confront Rome. He took a large Carthaginian army to Iberia in 237 BC and began conquering territories in southeast. This gave Carthage the silver mines, agricultural wealth, and the manpower that could be used in case of another war with Rome. Hamilcar ruled as a viceroy and was succeeded by his son-in-law, Hasdrubal, in 228 BC, and then his son, Hannibal, in 221 BC. In 226 BC, the Ebro Treaty was agreed with Rome, specifying the Ebro River as the northern boundary of the Carthaginian sphere of influence. However, at some time during the next 6 years, Rome made a separate treaty with the city of Saguntum, which was situated well south of the Ebro. In 219 BC, a Carthaginian army under Hannibal captured Saguntum, and in the spring of 218 BC, Rome declared war on Carthage. In the north, the Romans prepared an army to attack Iberia, and in the south conquered the island of Malta in the summer of 218 BC. Meanwhile, Hannibal assembled a Carthaginian army in New Carthage and led it northwards along the Iberian coast in May or June, and then crossed the Pyrenees. The Carthaginians defeated the local tribes and crossed the Alps in winter with 37 elephants, catching the Romans in northern Italy by surprise. Meanwhile, a Roman fleet carrying Roman troops landed in Marseille in the autumn of 218 BC, and from there they arrived to northeast Iberia. The Romans occupied the territory between Ebro and the Pyrenees, blocking the route from Iberia to Italy and preventing the dispatch of reinforcements from Iberia to Hannibal. In northern Italy, Hannibal and his army routed the cavalry and light infantry of the Romans at the Battle of Ticinus in late November 218 BC. Most of the Gallic tribes sided with the Carthaginians, and Hannibal's army grew to more than 40,000 men. A large Roman army was lured into combat by Hannibal at the Battle of the Trebia in December, encircled and destroyed. Gauls now joined Hannibal's army in large numbers, bringing it up to 60,000 men. In early spring 217 BC, the Carthaginians crossed the Apennines unopposed, and in June, in the Battle of Lake Trasimene, completely defeated the Roman army, killing 15,000 Romans and taking 15,000 prisoners. After this victory, Hannibal marched south in the hope of gaining new allies among the ethnic Greek and Italic city-states to help him against the Romans. The Roman Senate authorized the raising of a force of 86,000 men, the largest in Roman history to that point. They attacked Hannibal at Cannae on the 2nd of August 216 BC. This resulted in the worst defeat for the Romans in history, 67,500 of their soldiers being killed or captured. After this victory, several of the city-states in southern Italy allied themselves with Hannibal. The new allies caused more problems than help to Hannibal's army, who was expected to defend them from Roman retribution. The Romans raised new legions but avoided to challenge Hannibal's main army in open battle, preferring to attack his allies in a war of attrition. Meanwhile, in Sicily, Syracuse allied with Carthage, who promised them the control of the whole island if they defeat the Romans. In the spring of 213 BC, the Romans began the siege of Syracuse. Here, the Greek mathematician and inventor Archimedes helped the defense of the city by constructing a sort of crane equipped with a grappling hook that was able to lift an attacking ship out of the water and then to drop it onto enemy ships. Also, it is said that Archimedes have used mirrors acting collectively as a parabolic reflector to burn ships attacking Syracuse. However, Syracuse fell in the autumn of 212 BC and Archimedes was killed by a Roman soldier. The Carthaginian resistance on the island was crushed until 210 BC and the Sicilian grain supply to Rome and its armies was resumed. Meanwhile, in Iberia, Hasdrubal Barca, the brother of Hannibal and the leader of the Carthaginian armies here, was defeated by the Romans, who managed to capture Saguntum in 212 BC. However, after bribing the Roman mercenaries to desert, Hasdrubal won the Battle of the Upper Baetis, forcing the Romans to retreat north of the Ebro. In 210 BC, the Roman general Publius Cornelius Scipio arrived in Iberia with further Roman reinforcements. In a carefully planned assault in 209 BC, he captured the lightly defended center of Carthaginian power in Iberia, New Carthage, seizing a vast booty of gold, silver, and siege artillery. In the spring of 207 BC, Hasdrubal Barca marched across the Alps and invaded Italy with an army of 30,000 men. His aim was to join his forces with those of Hannibal, but Hannibal was unaware of his presence. A large Roman force attacked Hasdrubal at the Battle of the Metaurus and destroyed his army, killing Hasdrubal. In 206 BC, at the Battle of Ilipa, Scipio won a decisive victory against the remaining Carthaginian armies in Iberia. After ending the Carthaginian presence in Iberia, Scipio landed in Africa in 204 BC, where he was assisted by the Numidian prince and later king Massinissa against Carthage. Rome and Carthage entered into peace negotiations, and Carthage recalled Hannibal from Italy. Hannibal was placed in command of another army formed from his veterans from Italy and newly raised troops from Africa, and the decisive battle took place in October 202 BC at Zama. The Romans had superiority in cavalry, and Hannibal was defeated, being one of the few who escaped the battlefield. After the battle, Scipio was awarded a triumph and received the agnomen Africanus. The peace treaty imposed on the Carthaginians stripped them of all of their overseas territories and some of their African ones. It was prohibited from waging war outside Africa and in Africa only with Rome's express permission. Carthage continued to remain a prosperous city without being a military threat to the Romans. Nevertheless, a faction within the Roman Senate was wishing to take military action against Carthage. The senator Cato the Elder was known with ending all of his speeches with Carthago delenda est. Carthage must be destroyed. The main problem for Carthage was that it was not allowed to wage war without Rome's permission. The Numidian king Massinissa took advantage of this situation and raided Carthaginian territory numerous times. In 151 BC, Carthage raised a large army and counterattacked the Numidians, offering a casus belli for the Romans, who declared war in 149 BC. In the same year, a Roman army of approximately 50,000 men landed near Utica, 35 kilometers north of Carthage. Rome demanded that if war were to be avoided, the Carthaginians must hand over all of their armaments. The Carthaginians agreed, but then the Romans demanded the Carthaginians to relocate their city at least 16 kilometers from the sea inside the continent. The Carthaginians withdrew from the negotiations, and the Romans began the siege of the city. The walls of Carthage proved to be too strong for the Romans, and the citizens were determined to defend the city. The Carthaginians managed to raid the Roman lines of communication, and their fire ships destroyed many Roman vessels. In early 147 BC, Scipio Aemilianus, an adopted grandson of Scipio Africanus, who had distinguished himself during the previous 2 years' fighting, was elected consul and took control of the war. The Romans captured all the territory around Carthage and built a mole to cut off supply from the sea. In the spring of 146 BC, the Roman army finally managed to break the fortifications of the city, and then it took them a week to clear the city of all resistance. There were 50,000 Carthaginian prisoners, a small proportion of the pre-war population who were sold into slavery. The Carthaginian territories in Africa were annexed by Rome and became the Roman province of Africa, with Utica as its capital. A century later, on the site of Carthage, was built by Julius Caesar the city of Roman Carthage, that would become one of the main cities of Roman Africa.